jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. What fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. What fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Oh, go away, jingle, what go away, jingle, oh, go away, jingle, what go away, jingle bells, jingle all the way. What fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh. O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtail ring, making our spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight.
Christmas, you filthy animal. Christmas, you filthy animal. And a Happy New Year.
Whoa, it's slow, isn't it? I think we are on a delay there, Ransom. Not sure what is going on with that, but that maybe I shouldn't be watching myself on the thing, eh?
You look good to me, man.
Okay, well, I'm on a feedback on the other one, so here we go. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I was watching myself on the Rumble feed, a full minute delay, asking myself, why is everything so sluggish? I was like, wait a minute. Thank you for joining us tonight. We come to the point of overwhelm again here. There's just so many things that are going on in this. It's almost like a defeatism overwhelm of everything that is surrounds you, whether it's the economy or people coming in, the joblessness, the wars that are starting, the food prices, the birds, just whales. There's mermaids everywhere. There's earthquakes. The Earth's rifting in parts and half. Just need to step aside and take a look at the possibilities of what's going on and the opportunities in this danger. And please support human generated content here at the Civilization Cycle. Sign up for our show notes at civilizationcycle.com, because we are in the age of, there's going to be a premium now for human generated content, like Ransom and I having our own independent ideas, comparing notes, trying to have you come into our conversation versus AI snipped, clipped, jammed, and thrown out down your throat by the thousands of video narrative talking points to try to get you to believe and think a certain way, that everybody's thinking this way. Shortly after Thanksgiving, when I was watching some morning TV with my parents, which I don't do, but they were staying at the house with us, and there was one article came on and said, oh, everybody's going to spend about $1,000 this year, and the economy is just ripping, and the sales, the stores are so full. But if you looked out with your real eyes, you could see that stores really weren't that full. And everybody I talked to said they're not going to be spending $1,000 on gifts for their just local family. The average of $1,000. And I'm like, okay, well, is it going to be limited? So anyway, food prices are up. I got a few articles to bring you tonight, specifically about what's going on with the fertilizer debacle. Like, Trump wants to put fertilizer tariffs on Canadian fertilizer, but realize if he does that, we won't have enough to operate here in America, because we get enormous amounts from Canada. And to put even a 25% tariff on it would just make our food cost more money. So some of these things I'm looking at just going, wait a second. I get it with the tariff thing, but the most integral part of our food growing system, the critical minerals, now you can tax that and things. That was one of the whole reasons they put silver on the critical minerals list, because then you can tariff any metals coming in. So the amount of gold and silver. And, Ransom and I were talking about last week. I said, man, the silver price is going to keep going up and up and up. And today it closed, or it did go above, excuse me, it didn't close. It went above $64 today. Briefly, and then came back down in the $63 range. Yeah, it went up to 60. Yeah, tapped 64 there, and then it's back down to 63. So if you go to that chart's too wide out. You need to probably go to the 15-minute chart or 5-minute chart to see just today's. We can look to Kitco Metals, kitco.com/silver. So everybody, look, there's changes. It's very clear to see that the money is changing, and the things are just going to get way, way, way more expensive as you see silver getting way, way, way more expensive. And the last thing, December 12th is when the printing presses, or not QE, starts again. So you can watch inflation just by the minute filling up. And it's like watching your gas tank fill up as you're at the petrol station if you leave your gauge on and your engine running on a freezing cold morning or a very hot day. Inflation is just going to start ticking up, because we're just going to start printing. Like, you thought that 2008 was insane. You see nothing yet. The amount of printing coming in is they are going to ramp that thing up. I mean, they're talking about $4 trillion extra here coming in 12 months. That's one of the reasons the silver price will continue to go up. And everybody I was listening to this last week is talking about $120 silver now. Before they were talking $65, $75 silver. Now those same people in unison have switched to $120 silver. So Ransom, thanks for joining me tonight. We'll switch off on some tabs here as we go through a few of the articles this evening, but appreciate you joining me. You look festive in the background. I got old Roman aqueducts. You got a Christmas tree.
It's it's kind of dull and bland outside, so you got to put up a little bit of color here this time of year to keep it festive.
Festive,
It's funny what you were talking about because you kind of hit right on what I was going to talk about with the AI content on YouTube.
Yeah, I'd like to delve into that. Can you go a little more? Because I mean, this is getting ridiculous now, this AI content thing.
Well, it's going to be intruding into your life in all areas. Now that, we've had a long standing entertainment, industry and setup. And part of that, I guess arguably by some people, but in my mind, that is part of the track and trace and control operation. And it's, I've indulged in it myself. I'll watch things on television or whatever to, passive entertainment, as they call it. But therein lies the problem, really, for the next phase of human development and evolution and the way that we live our lives as a society, is that AI is now going to replace even our passive entertainment. So we've already let our minds go to a certain point when you allow passive anything. So let's put it in this perspective. If you lived in the 1800s or, there all the way up until radio, you would have been reading books. And when you read books, your brain responds by really boosting an intellect and cognitive abilities. And the reason for that is because you tap directly into the imagination power of your mind. And so when you're reading a book, you used to have to fill in all of the pictures for yourself. Whenever you read about an adventure or something like that about a foreign land, you had to visualize it in your head, and they usually only had like sketches. You might get lucky if there was some kind of illustration. But as times progressed, we got pictures, and then books began to have less words in them. And then we moved over to radio and television entertainment. And when we did that, we gave over this power of imagination over to a group of people that create fictitious and false imagination things. And, like I said, I'm guilty. I indulge in that. However, it's going to the next level now in the form of it's going to completely radicalize the way that people think and imagine. And it's basically the plot of Idiocracy unfolding in real time now that we can see it. It's not like a predictive thing that's going to happen in some far off future. It's happening in real time, and it's the coalescence and the mix of technology and trends when it relates to the way people think that entertainers, and trends are somehow important in their real physical day-to-day life, which obviously it's not. You have to go to work, you have to pay bills, you have to do all this. So that's just a way to go home, and they use sports to do that for a while. But now it's going to a technological level that I would consider being kind of a weapon that's aimed at human beings. And they're starting with the youth. And that's why there's been all these, I'll say, cultural arguments over the past decade that really have intensified. And what it is it's the last stitch of the way of life of a human to be living free on the earth, to be able to walk around and have their own privacy and have their own property and things like that. We're going back to a similar thing to feudalism, but it's a technological serfdom at this point. So people, are kind of trivial when they talk about the tracking and the tracing, and they did it for this pandemic, or they're doing it to just keep track of criminals, or financial spying, or there's on and on and on. But I'll get into some articles here in a minute that basically show that they're altering the way that human beings, and we've talked about this before, more in a sci-fi and woo-woo way, that it only takes one generation of human beings to completely transform a civilization. And there's a lot of ancient examples of that, from Rome up into recent times in the last World War, where people were using this idea that they didn't need you or your opinion or really anything about you. They just need your wealth, but most importantly, they need your children and their minds. And that's the way that we're going. So I know you're familiar with tablets, and the whole story about Steve Jobs, and he didn't allow his children to use the technology that he was creating, which was the tablet technology and transference of information from the internet, from artificial cyberland over. And it's a great way to learn things and everything if you use it correctly. But he knew that it rewired the brain of children. So there's been several generations now that have grown up on this technology, and now they're introducing the implant phase of the technology, from smart glasses to hearing aids to literal implants that you would put in to keep track of your health for you, because unlike your grandparents who had a little pill capsule that had the days on it, and it was up to them to be a responsible adult and figure out what their medications were and what they interacted with. We don't have that kind of society anymore. Now we have a trust the system, the AI system, and it's becoming increasingly hard to find real information without the filter of the AI being inserted into your research or what you're looking for. And now it's going to go to the level of when you watch television or play games or listen to the radio, you're not going to be listening to real people, real events, or anything. It's going to be completely computer generated. Matter of fact, the new line of video games for the major platforms came out, and they're already using that technology as predicted, where there's no intellectual property anymore, in the way that there would be some designers and programmers that would come up with a product that people would play that was fun or whatever, and they would design it with the graphics and the titles and the whole imagination. They're even taking that out of the gameplay. What they're doing is using what humans have created in the past 20 years and now giving it to AI to use as a weapon directly against us. From the time children are growing up all the way till when they're an adult, they don't know what's real. And we're already at that point. I mean, as you can see by how bizarre people are behaving that don't understand they're in that system. It's literally like the Matrix, where people do not understand that they're part of the system, but it's going on. And Disney, one of the major influencers of children since television became a thing, is now moving over to the Sora AI platform with their digital intellectual property characters. In other words, they're going to put children in front of a screen that creates all of their imagination for them, creates their opinions, creates their problem solving. All of that's going to be determined by what the kids are sucked to on these ever increasing streaming fees. And then there's a joke going out there. I've seen several joke videos about it, about like if you had Netflix when it first came out, it was a fee and you got to watch movies, but then they put commercials in it. So you had to pay a fee to get around the commercials. But then, they put more titles. And then if you really want to watch those titles without commercials, you have to pay another fee now to get, and they joke about how pretty soon, you'll mortgage your house so that you can pay your streaming devices, which is, funny that people think that those kind of things are even important in the first place.
They're not, and none of it is. And a little distracted trying to get some stories up here for us. But following on that, on NBC News here, Australia launches youth social media ban and says it will be the world's first domino. Of course it will. Well, they're starting with this here.
Yeah.
So where does it go from here then? So as with everything, with the DACA Act over in Europe, where they want entire control of social media in Europe. So unelected bureaucrats say this is the opposite of what we think. You have to ban it totally. I mean, to zero. That's why they needed the encryption off of Telegram, because they really want zero talking and communication except what's approved by the state or by the, because we've rolled the clock back into serfdom, really.
Absolutely.
This oligarch class, and there's no other way to describe them. They're not elected, and they're running the entire country system of Europe, 45 countries in there. as if they're kings and queens delegating to the dukes and earls to tell the legislature and the police what to do to the citizens. Complete control. Now they are trying to bring that over here. Now, hopefully, there will be more pushback. There is some now, but I think they overstepped their thing trying to go for Elon first.
Yeah.
They've overplayed their hand immediately, trying to think they could strong arm. Because again, if you could have taken him down first, then everybody else would have caved like a domino. So you would probably go, knowing you might lose the battle with Goliath like that. But to go there first, because if you do win that battle, then every other person beneath that realm of strength, of owning the company, telling everybody else to F off, advertisers and everything in between, I don't need your money. Remember that famous on the stage, F yourself, I don't need your money. Like there's no way to bribe 140 million. Okay, I'll take that out of my pocket. I got like 100 billion. That's my coffee money for the month. That's the way he's playing this. So to try to come at it with, there's two, these simultaneously happen in the same week, believe it or not. Australia, the same exact week that the European Union is trying to fine and shut down X, not just in Europe, across the planet. You got to realize that they want to extinguish it even in our free speech bastion here in America, if there is still some left, agreed. But they want to extinguish that at the point here, not just try to snuff it out in Europe, but they want to come back to the seed point and break it completely, like uproot it. And then we got Australia coming out, and I don't know what you think about this. It is going to spread because you've heard a lot of different states already here in America talking about this, age verification for multiple different things. But if you're going to have to show ID, and again, this is the first step into the first domino to do what? Ring the bell ransom, ding, 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 ding. Have to authenticate, log in, retinal scan, ID verified for every single post, every single response, every single key click. And that's really what it's about. It's not about protecting the children. It's about having everybody register like you are in China. You can't click a single mouse without being online and also your identity associated with that online. And anybody you associate with or connect with or comment with, if it's lower than you on a social credit score, it knocks your score down. This is the ultimate. They self-police themselves tremendously because they're not going to be able to rent an apartment, It's crazy.
Yeah. And the whole thing is more of a nightmare than it seems because, we're talking about this and looking at this as and a lot of people are viewing it as kind of an anecdotal police power that's not going to work. And especially with stuff like this going on where teenagers already figured out how to skirt their social media bans because the kids are going to learn stuff. And that is exactly the point. They're trying to switch it over basically to where your kids lose the ability to have imagination and invention and things like this, where they're using their characters that people, liked over a decade or more and became part of the household, all the way from those old VHS tapes where people were happy to have some Disney movies at their house. Well, now your kids are going to be able to watch their characters in an endless void of artificial intelligence creation of information and environment. And, it goes back to this thing right here as I wanted to show you this, if I'll switch it here. Basically AI illiteracy is happening. So the older kids, now that they've had their brains rewired by tablets and internet and now AI, are completely illiterate on reading and writing in the traditional sense. Cursive was a thing of the past 10 years ago, and now just basic writing is disappearing too. It's like the movie, the newer make of Fahrenheit 454, where the new language was just emojis to, and anything other than that would lead to a thought crime and, your person being raided. But
and then you're back to Egyptian hieroglyphs. If we're only speaking in emojis, that's basically a hieroglyphic system. Different
right.
than cuneiform, but
yes, and there's a whole plan kind of to this. And the question becomes now, is it the time to go declare war on AI? And I would say possibly that's yes, because you have stuff like this where people are using the things to kind of stalk people or mess with their minds. And then not to mention that there's the new phenomenon of psychosis via AI because they couldn't handle the idea of entities that are this smart out there. And then tech giants are, fully betting on consumers finally giving up and putting the smart glasses on, which includes what I was talking about, implants and other peripherals that you need for medicine or for exercise or for your health or whatever. There's a plethora of excuses that they're using, that you need to just go over to this trend and this fad and switch over. And they're going to use stories like this one to encourage and persuade you that it's a good idea. A woman gives birth in a Waymo after self-driving taxi alerted 911 to unusual activity. They're going to use, the idea of
Wait, go through that again. Are you telling me that the computer system or the AI system inside said, "Whoa, there's something strange going on here," and this woman's flipping around like a fish in the back, and then
Yes.
it alerted the police for the car or the property itself to be protected.
Yes, that's
They
exactly
didn't
what
care about the
happened.
person. They were more like companies. Police are there to protect companies. They're not there to protect you. Understand the law. The law is the reason the police were set up was to protect corporation and entity, not individuals. So the
Right.
same thing, the reason the AI is there is to protect property. It's not there to be, oh, we need to make sure that if any human gets hurt, you're an individual. They don't care about you. You're not the property of the corporation is the thing that's being protected by AI. You as a flesh and blood human are expendable.
Yeah, that's
The
exactly right.
corporation, of course.
And it wasn't really about that. It's just the hook to get people sold on the idea that automated and AI controlled things are the future, and it's the way it is. And they may be right because they're talking about stuff like this. Tether launches focused health platform with all device AI. This is the AI that would be keeping track of all your implants and everything that you use, all the peripherals, your biometrics included with that, which is also the key to your financial reality on the internet, or your internet self, as they're trying to push. And why are they doing that? Because we're finally at the age of orbital data centers. The space race has officially begun, but we
Yeah.
already talked about this years ago,
Oh,
that's where
years
it was
ago,
going.
man. Years ago, dude. I'm serious. Years ago, we
And,
talked.
and that's also why they have such a hard on for the moon now, because they want to put data centers on it. Data centers with AI that keep track of every living human on the planet. Complete track and trace system from the top down. And
Oh,
then,
and the Earth itself, every square meter of the Earth or every square foot of the planet monitored in real time to watch the ebb and flow. And that way, the carbon trading market can move in real time depending on the forestation, the seasons of the year, the vegetation, the vegetative index, the density of the vegetation, the human habitation in there. They know when a single tree was felled. They can reduce that out of your 1 acre carbon credit. And when I say this, they are so granular, they can come down to a single tree in a 1 acre lot and determine the carbon allowance on that 1 acre by a single tree falling down, hit by lightning, felled by a human. They already have it that wired in. All the tree species, the CO2 sequestration in that by having the tree, and they are down to this single tree in an acre. By
absolutely,
hundreds of millions of acres. That's the whole thing. It's really beyond mind-blowing that they can synthesize that much data and collate that much data in real time, millions of acres, and they can find a single tree that's gone out of that because it's blocked. They're not looking at they're blocking it in small blocks.
and
So this
trees
is
have
scary
rights.
because there's going to be that many more satellites above us to be able to look and monitor in real time. I would swear the amount of satellites up there is going to have to go like 100x where we sit now to accomplish the goals they're looking at. But you talk about disposable satellites, why not?
That was going to be my next point, is and people like Elon Musk have now perfected and shown the world that they do have the technology to have reusable and disposable satellites and rockets. I mean, think about that. The same rocket could launch more and more satellites. We have an EMP, they just slap that thing back together again, and boom, back on the internet. Starlink is the future.
you're gonna be broadcasting your transmissions of your cryptocurrency while it's up to a satellite, not on terrestrial internet. That was the whole thing you and I were talking about a couple years ago.
And right, and
Everything is going to be broadcast up and around and then back down. That's why they're not repairing any of the infrastructure on
yeah,
the surface of the planet. It's going to be above the planet. That's the whole thing.
And then that's the whole circle back to the YouTube thing that you were talking about, is basically we are the obsolete man. So to have a human being telling you things that they think, or they think they know, or their opinion on things, is going to be completely eradicated off of the information flow to humans. So instead, you're going to have AI that's completely filtered and sanitized for any ideas that would lead people to be, intelligent. And that's why they're starting with the smallest children. They're becoming illiterate. They won't know math, which means they can't do complex mathematics, which means they can't do programming, and they can't fight the system that's in place when they're born. It's a completely entertainment idiocracy serfdom thing. But it's beyond that. It's their way of the Agenda 30 program is going on. And that goes directly to what you're talking about keeping track of each tree, because the governances around the world, including those that are on board with the basically world government to fight climate change and rule the peasants down there. They're shutting down industry, they're shutting down energy, they're shutting down food production, they're shutting down know-how. This is literally what you would do if you were in a military think tank, I don't know, and you said, hey, how could we most easily collapse a society where they did it and it's their fault? Well, you dumb them down, you kind of taint all the products, you create an economic situation where everything costs too much. And then, people are like little busy ants nonstop working for that system while they're being reduced to numbers. And they're going to use this technology to do governance when it comes to, like you said, keeping track of your property. Did you build a new shed? Did you chop down some trees and use that for firewood? Did you create a new wetland? Did you dig a well that's not sanctioned by the government? Did you eat the king's deer out there? We know there was more deer running around because we were tracking them with collars, and we noticed some of them disappeared on your property, which gives the game warden and the federal government complete authority on your property to go through your house in everything that you own. And imagine other countries that don't even have a constitution to hang on to.
Yeah, well, there's another point that needs to be plugged in here. The switch between systems. Now, collapsing the
Right.
economy is one thing. They'll get all nervous and everything. Don't get me wrong. But to bring in an entirely AI system where people have forgotten there was an old system. They forgot how the old world operated, and they forgot even how the old internet operated with themselves in it. Because you have to think about, in your mind right now, what was the world exactly like in 2017? It is so different and literally a mile away from where we sit today. We had to go through the COVID. We went through the deconstruction of our world and then the reconstruction into a new form that is on. Like, I had an epiphany today, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But this is going to switch the shift of all AI after. So during the collapse, that's the perfect time to erase everything that's possible for you to connect to. Bring in all AI, and then as we come back into universal basic income and as the economy is starting to roll back again, you're going to have to get into all these ID systems to be able to access the funds of the new system. So it's going to be used in two ways. It's for the fear of losing your identity, because basically paper money is the identity tied to a lot of people on what they have, what they own, how much they make. So that paper represents their identity, literally. So if that's stripped away from everybody, first you take them down to a novice again. But to make everybody come in the new system, but then they all have to come in under the new digital whatever's required with the ID system that is in play now. Dystopian, yeah, but final purpose, not sure. But they're going to need at the same time to put such a scatter wave out that you won't even be worried about that. The last thing you'll be worried about is, am I going to be able to log on to the internet today? Am I going to be able to still read free news and log on to the net today? No, they're going to be worried about where the next meal comes from. And if you can do that long enough for a prolonged enough period, people will literally forget the old world. Do you remember a time when nobody ever asked you for an ID for anything? Even in 2017, you go back, it seems like real Wild West back then. Like, damn, it was so free then. But it was not. It was completely locked down in comparison to like 2001. the world from 2001 and 2017, oh man, just a draconian nightmare of netting everybody and all information and all data, and just really like tremendous intrusion. But now you look at that and go, oh, it was so free back then compared to today. But think about the collapse of 10 years. Now, if I could, I wanted to share the screen here because, and I was looking at this JP Morgan article, and we talk about silver heavy here because precious metals survived thousands and thousands of years through the same exact phenomena of hyperinflation, inflated prices, collapse. Generally, JP Morgan goes short to try to suppress the price, because if there's more sell contracts or more contracts that are at a much lower price, betting the price is going to go down on the silver. If you can overwhelm the system, then those bids and asks coming in there way lower than the actual physical price at spot is going to drive that price down. And this is how they have been manipulating it forever. The actual ridiculousness of hundreds of times more paper traded in a day than there really is physical silver on the planet. That fake paper price would push the price down, and anytime it came up, man, they would hammer it down. And we've seen that since like 1971. So here's where it gets weird. It's suddenly changed. Like these big bullion banks normally that have hundreds of millions of ounces moving around, not just JP Morgan, but about 10 or 12 other banks pushing nearly 1 billion ounces of silver. They're talking some days they're pushing 10 billion ounces on paper, lowering the price. No, I bet tomorrow the price is going to be lower by $1. And they're continuously pushing by 10 billion ounces. Shit, we don't even make that. We don't even produce that enough in a whole year. But that much is traded per day on paper through these fake paper contracts. And this is the way the silver price was manipulated. So that's a long story. But normally most bullion banks are short as hell. Really, the whole time they're short because they're trying to manipulate and control the price. Here's the thing that happened today, which is so absolutely, if you're looking for signals, it's like Warren Buffett having a thing and go, you know what, by the way, we're selling every stock we own and we're starting to buy gold and silver immediately. Thank you very much. We guarantee your share price at Berkshire Hathaway will go up. Thank you for your attention. Like right. That kind of monumental, smack you in the face, crocodile you hitting them with the tail kind of announcement. This is another one right here. JP Morgan sells entire short position of silver and flips long to 100% long. Meaning there's no way that they can't contend anymore. The pressure going up is too high, so they have to go with the flow and try to continue to work with the price and siphon it off as they move along here. And I will read you. This is off Silver Trade, excellent site. There's a few other sites like Mike Maloney's site at goldsilver.com. Excellent commentary there. Kitco has some good stuff. JP Morgan long believed to the longest short of gold and silver to control the markets for decades, plural. They've been hit so many times with billions of dollars of fine for market rigging and price manipulation. Nobody went to jail. They just paid the $1 billion, but they made $4 billion in profit. So it's an operating cost of 25% or something. That's the way they look at it. $1 billion fine is just an operating cost, just an expense. And they know they'll get caught. They know they get slapped on the wrist. Those that are investigating and were smart enough to figure it out usually get hired with them because they're smart enough to figure it out. So the only time, and I've heard this before, that's why I wanted to bring it up. The only time that they would ever go long was when the actual price of silver was uncontainable any longer. And the only way for them to literally save the bank was to get the metal as they knew it was going to go to astronomical prices to get that gain along with everybody else in the entire planet, because those 200 million going short, they know they can't beat the system any longer. And if they were holding on to those and got locked in with that, 200 million ounces, and generally they're leveraged out, I don't know how many times on top of that. But if they were to get locked in and silver ran away to 120 and they were stuck at a $60, they had to pay $60 on each of those 1 ounces. Oh, you're talking 200 million times 60 times how many times they are leveraged out.
Yeah.
That would be more money than entire GDPs of nations they would lose in just a day. They understand something monumental is about to happen here, where the prices are not going to go by mere pennies or dollars per day. They're going to start jumping by $10, $20 a day, or else they wouldn't be doing this. And I heard several people speak about this through the years, that when it came to this point, when these bullion banks all started to go long, that you were looking for $5, $10 gains in a day. And when it really got into like FOMO, where Main Street starts to come on, you might see some $30, $50 day gains. They can't survive that. They get caught out one day, they're going to get blown out. So they have gone 750 million ounces positive, meaning they can take delivery of 750 million ounces in the future. You tell me what's going on. The full physical supply of all these, even with what they have on paper, there's not that much silver available on the whole planet, even in a year. So the paper continues to be manipulated, but this time, instead of pushing the price down, they are pushing full throttle the price up. That is what I'm trying to get into, a long way to say maybe, is them going long means the price of silver is absolutely going to go to levels you never thought it could go to. Never. I mean, you know, and some of these wild traders are going, yeah, you'll be able to pay off your house with like 10 ounces of silver. And I was like, nah, man, that'd have to be like $5,000 an ounce or something, right?
Right.
And well, for silver, not gold. So you tell me. So what are we looking at with the U.S. debt clock? And they do a silver ratio there. Let me pull that up too. I'll pull you off there. Kind of lost my train of thought, but
I was gonna say maybe they're just trying to outpace or outprice the public sector. Because right now, this is actually what I was going to go to next, is that we seem to be in the second kind of renaissance of mining and attributing wealth to every little ounce of matter on the earth. You know, especially with these rare earth elements, which, you know, gold and silver are in that group, trove of critical minerals undiscovered or uncovered, excuse me, in the Utah desert. But even more interesting than that is that countries and militaries are going over to developing small refineries for critical minerals, which could include recycling stuff that's already there, or, you know, I don't know, getting it right off the market, like copper, or, you know, you're going to be using a lot of gold and silver for what? Technology for the next phase of things. And we're well into the Agenda 30 idea. I mean, most of what they really had planned is happening. And the thing about the ID, which is funny about that, I went today for a eye appointment to get a prescription, because, you know, I'm getting a little older and my eyesight ain't what it once was. And they required an ID just to get my eyes checked. You know, you're talking about all these things. Yes. And I was like, I just kept thinking, whatever, but why in the world would you need my identification? And funnily enough, they had one of those, you know, license plate and facial recognition readers outside in their parking lot, also on the road right there. So those things are everywhere. So we're just about to jump over into the Agenda 30 whole thing, which, if you go read it, what's one of the major things that they wanted to do there is not only digitize, track, and trace every single animal, plant, and human on the planet, but a massive population reduction. And we're about to have that. And all you know, signs point to it's just a case of when and where and what's the trigger for it to basically go off. We now see European countries referring to us as adversaries because we're cutting off Ukraine funding. So it's getting pretty weird. And then, you know, I'm sure you saw the them grabbing the oil refineries and tankers there in Venezuela. And they're going to float those tankers back over to the U.S. And then Trump also saying that we shouldn't not expect strikes in Colombia, Venezuela, and Mexico. So we're just adding to the area of, you know, doubt here. Meanwhile, they're collecting all the goodies off the earth.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is this I had written a note to myself. The Great Reset is nothing more than harvesting you know, condensing all the assets that would be destroyed in this whole natural reduction anyway. So you look at the Great Reset. It's not targeted against you personally. They're just trying to harvest all the wealth off the planet because it would be destroyed anyway due to these cycles that we're heading into. So don't take it personally. I mean, yeah, do, but I mean, it's not. There's something way larger and way bigger than that. Just they're targeting me. So here you go. I wanted to bring this up. This is your gold and silver, and we'll look at national debt. What was the last number you remember there, Ransom, of the national debt? 37 something trillion when we brought it on
Yeah.
the show last time.
I think so.
We'll take a look at that in a second. But if you follow my cursor right there, which you can't because I'm on the wrong page. So
Yeah, I see
if
it.
you look right here, dollar to silver ratio now, $1,163. So if we were to take all, all the debt that was out there and then convert it over into what was owed on our national debt, and we were going to pay it off with silver, and all the existing silver, even the shit that's in your like cutlery and thing, all the silver that we know about would come out to this price per ounce, and that includes your grandma's old silver. So don't think of it as it's way different than that. They're trying to add in things that shouldn't be. So this should be far, far higher because you're not going to pull out grandma's cutlery and like sell it. You know what I mean? So the dollar per ounce, as high as some people said as high as 40,000 to reset on this, but here you're almost near 10,000. But I wanted to show you the paper to silver ratio. So currently, as I was saying with JP Morgan, they have 357 ounces or 357 ounces on paper for each one physical ounce that's available anywhere. Right. So those paper contracts are at least 357 as they know of, but there's far deeper rehypothecation and these sort of things. And then there's dark pools for funding and liquidity out there. That doesn't count in all this. So just put that in perspective. On paper, there's almost 400 ounces of silver pledged to the world when there's really only one physical ounce. This is what's starting to break right now. Like in the future, we talked about this last show. There's going to be a price point at which I don't care what it is, people won't sell it. And then unless you give an extremely generous bid and offer something else that somebody needs, then they will trade you that. But it is really going to become quite expensive for an ounce of silver. But again, everything else you buy will become expensive as well.
Right.
But a little bit better news for today, the gold to silver or the gold to paper ratio has declined from about 143 to 141 for 1 ounce. So there's 141 paper contracts out there for every real physical 1 ounce of gold. That's declined actually. So 357's it's been like that for quite some time on the ratio of paper to silver. So to answer the glaring question, where are we? Who bet at it? 38. Da-da-da-da. It's already gone up more than half a trillion dollars in the last 2 weeks since we looked at this clock.
Right, and it's already close enough to almost round up there.
That is insane. When was the last time we looked at this debt clock? Like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Because I remember when we were looking at the SDO, at the solar, at the CME that was coming off, we were looking at this debt clock too.
Yeah, and
that's not very long ago.
To most of the public, this is just what is this? This doesn't matter. What is that? They don't even get what it is, though. I'm saying for the average American, they're not thinking about the national debt. If you showed them this, that's just the hieroglyphics. Where's the emoji that says, broke?
I don't know. Here's for the whole year. They're expecting another $1.7 trillion for the year. So the future USA Treasury dollars, they're counting it for you. So this is an interesting thing that popped up. Whoa, where'd it go? There it is. Wealth-based, debt-free, non-interest-bearing money issued by the U.S. Treasury. We call that coinage, like gold and silver coinage, copper coinage. 1862, President Lincoln issued $450 million directly from the U.S. Treasury, debt-free, interest-free notes known as greenbacks. There was no debt with that. So think of we worked on an entire system where our country survived on tariffs from others. There was zero income tax before 1913, you understand. We still had roads, there was electric being put in, there was running water, there were cities and thing. Prior to that, so think about the world in 1912. Not as advanced as today. But like New York City was up and absolutely running. It was like a bustling hub. Boston, Savannah, right. Florida was coming in. All the ports were banging, and still they were running the entire country with no income tax.
Yeah.
On June 4th, 1963, President Kennedy signed Executive Order 11110, issuing $4.3 billion directly from the Treasury, bypassing the Federal Reserve. These debt-free notes were known as silver certificates, and I used to collect those as a kid. Little blue dot on them over the words there, and it was redeemable, where you could actually walk in and before they closed the silver window, you were able to walk in with that blue note and say, hey, I want to get $10 worth of silver. But when silver was like $4 an ounce, they would give you a couple and 2.5 ounces back over the counter for that. Like physical metal exchange, gold was the same way as well. But now that no longer happens. You got to go pre-33 for that gold to be able to change over the window like that. But still, through a history, you could walk in with these paper things and get the physical metals back over the counter, because every bank, that's where the reserves come. And another thing, I was talking to a friend today, he's like, did you know that no banks have to have any reserve anymore? And I was like, yeah, that's kind of, they talked about 6 months ago. None of our banks have to have any money backing up the bank any longer. Zero.
Yeah.
But prior to that point, that's why they called it a reserve or a reserve ratio, because if you had those $10 bill, $100 bill, whatever, and you come into a bank and you said, here's 100 paper, I want my metal, they legally had to give it to you. So the bank always had to have some percentage of all their loans and all their total assets. Usually back then it was like 10% of everything they own had to be as a reserve, like literally on the property at any one time, so people could come in and redeem it. Well, now since we're all on digital systems, the redeeming doesn't happen. It just won't happen. They're relying on a system of ATMs to distribute the cash to you. It wasn't us. ATMs ran out. My bad. We'll get it back to you tomorrow or after the weekend. It's not like going up to the bank 5 p.m. on a Friday or 4:59 and go, I need this over the counter.
Right.
Oh, we're out for the weekend. Sorry. But you see how this thing had worked through history twice. And what happened to both of those presidents, by the way, do you think?
Yeah. And then
Did you notice that the two things that they have in common are the two other things that they have in common?
that's true.
You go U.S. Treasury debt-free instruments, and you are a target on your back for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is, they have these little programs that try to prevent the public from ever attaining or getting enough of that to be an actual power or decider with any of the currency as it is. And they've milked it over time. So like very little amounts of regular people have silver or gold. And when they do, it's kind of minuscule compared to the power of the other people that own the massive amounts. Yeah, and we still don't know really how much is out there.
Can I hold you? Well, in your opinion, like what's a large silver holding for an individual, like in terms of ounces?
I would think at least a pound. A troy pound, what's that? 12 ounces, right? 14 ounces.
16 ounces.
14, I think. Troy ounce. Or
Yeah,
12.
well, I think it's
No,
16
12.
ounces to a pound.
I'm sorry, it's 12 ounces.
That's 12 inches to a foot, man.
No, it's a troy ounce there. Yeah.
Oh, if it's troy ounce, it's 32. It's almost 32.8 grams, I think, or 33 grams. You want to round it off?
Yes. A troy pound is 12 ounces. Yes. 333 grams.
Then what's 16 ounces?
That's our regular royal foot and pound system, but they never use that for monetary for silver and gold. It's by troy, which is a few ounces short of a pound there. And I believe the troy ounce is also a different measurement system.
It is, because if you look at a troy ounce, the number of grams, like if you look it up in grams, if you're over in Europe, they're selling everything. But even in England, if you look at the different weights and measure system on the troy ounce versus what you could the regular, what we consider ounce being used out, it's a little bit different. It's about 3.5 grams different, which is about 10% on that.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Especially if you look at the back of a silver round, it says 1 ounce.
Right.
1 troy ounce. So what are you seeing on your measurements there?
Yeah. So if because of that, you get a 31.1 gram ounce instead of a 28 gram ounce, because you're on a different measurement system.
Yeah, and especially if we go on kilos too, then you come into how many ounces? 35 or 32 ounces when you come into a kilo. Like a lot of metals are sold in kilos as well, and a lot of metals are also sold in grams. So it's good we're having this discussion, because the difference in metals and the difference in the conversion of grams. So if somebody has like a 10 gram piece of gold or a 1 gram piece of gold, You able to operate in that system? Do you even know how much that is or how much it's worth? Like 1 gram?
Right. I was trying to
I mean, there's converters
tell
out there
my
right now because we have the internet. But if you don't have the internet, would you be able to even make change with that? Like, do you have any old pre-64 constitutional silver where you could actually get a fraction of an ounce without having to pay the absurd premiums on bullion for a portion of an ounce, like 10th ounce? Oh my God, I'm going to pull up the kit. I'm going to pull up a site here with AppMex. I know they're a little expensive on everything, but you'd be surprised. Well, prices on a full one, the different ounce round, a 5 ounce or a 10 ounce bar, and just for like a unbelievable. So it's Silver Eagles first. I'm curious the Silver Eagle price here today, and I don't know if you're sharing a screen, but I could share mine.
no.
Ransom, can you hear me? So waiting for Ransom to come back. Look at the price of Silver Eagles now. You can't touch anything for under 69, but it's really deceiving because it's not really, wow, I can get one for 69. Let me click on to the actual fine details. There you go. The smallest you could probably pick up silver for now is going to be around $5 an ounce in the real world, even though it's trading for 64, the premiums on it, because it's more and more difficult to get. See, that's the whole thing, is we're getting into the unobtainium $10 premiums. So what you're looking at is the price. This is an American issued, government issued mint coin here, Walking Liberties. So $74 for that. Now, do look into silver. I want to go down into by the weights here, and you can do that. You can just trace through your own stuff. Get
Right.
down into like the 1/10 ounce. Let me find it here. 1/10.
We were sitting around here the other day with my son, and I was asking him how many, have you figured out the formula? And he was like, what? And I said, of how many of them quarters, them silver what is it, 63 quarters, take to make a pound, or how many half dollars does it take to make a pound? So he wrote it down. He figured it out. I think it was like, so if you got some of that old money that's not even pure silver, it's like, what is it, like, I think this says 90% silver if they were pre-1965, half dollars, and then you got the 60%
Yeah,
quarters,
pre-65 was
right? So
1964. Yeah.
with 37 points, you a pound of silver. So it'd be like a little stack of 37 coins. When you
Yeah, and
see
if you look
it,
at that, so fuck, I can't turn my thing off here. Windows, damn. Microsoft. No, I got to get this thing turned off. It started back on me again on me, and then I'm like, this Teams thing is killing me. Terrible. Get off there, Teams. All right. So the point being, you saw that it was $70 per ounce, pretty much, for the Liberty rounds, right? Walking Liberty. So
Right.
look at this. This is a 10th ounce piece. And if you'll notice, it's $11.84 for a 10th ounce piece. Now, these are, private mints, because U.S. government doesn't mint this. They want ounce ones, right? So if you're going to buy a 10th of an ounce piece, you have to pay at least what's almost $112 for that.
Wow.
For 10 of those 1/10 ounce rounds, it still equals 1 ounce. 10 of those equals 1 ounce. Or you can buy 1 ounce for $74, or you can get 1 ounce for $112. That is the premium on these 10th ounce pieces. But if you go to the constitutional silver and you get those quarters, as you were talking about, or those dimes, they're nearly the same equivalent. If you look at for example, that Liberty, if you get the actual real dime, Liberty dime, it's very close to a 10th of an ounce.
Yeah. And if you got those original Liberty dollars, what's it, like 17 of them, you got a pound.
Yep. And there's the premiums on this constitutional silver compared to the premiums on these 10th ounce coins are incredibly ridiculous. Incredibly ridiculous. Let's see.
Yeah, don't go melt them yet. It's still going to go up and up for a while. So, if you have a bunch of those older coins too, man, just hold on to them.
Yeah, and again, there's quite a few. AppMax is a little more expensive, and I kind of come through here and pick around and see what there is here in terms of. All right, so junk, they call it junk silver still, so 90%. And let's see what they got here. So you can get a roll of those Mercury dimes for about $230. And let's see and it'll give you so that whole roll here. So you get 50 of those coins and 50 of those inside for $233. Then you scroll down a little bit, and the amount of that contains 3.575. So let's say 3.5 ounces for 250. But you realize that those dimes are nearly equivalent with a 10th ounce of silver in that. So, when you're starting to take a look at, all right, it's not going to be exact, obviously, but can you make change with it is the question. That is the whole question. And you could do this in a much cheaper way, just saying. And if you're going to be looking out that way for, do you want to pay there'd be $336 for something you just could have bought for $233. So when you're starting to look at these different prices on here, what is it with the old money too? It's cool to have that old money. And then you said dimes and, quarters, half dollars.
Right. In dollars. Yep.
And the silver dollars. I think that's 7/10 of an ounce in a silver dollar. But still, the prices on that stuff is way cheaper than buying the bullion. And these are actually more recognized or, as recognized as anything else. So
Yeah.
$5 in face value. Yeah.
I came across these things, and I couldn't figure out why my grandparents were saving these right here, because they don't say that they're silver, but we found out they were about, I think it was 70% silver. They're the old Olympic coins. These are from Germany in 1972, I think it is.
Yeah, those did have silver in them, didn't they?
Yeah. So if you got any of those old, and they don't say it on it, so it's not like it advertises it on the coin. It just says what year of Olympics it was and what country. And this was actually, I found out, one of the last silver minted coins in Germany. And
as well, silver minted coins across the planet.
It's from
there has to be some countries that are still minting silver into their coins. I wonder, it's probably like Dubai or somewhere in there.
The Deutsche Bank.
Deutsche Bank. Yeah, well, all these sovereign coins are still minted by the government. I'm just, what do you think the eagle or the maple leaf is coming from? That's a Royal Canadian Mint. How about the kangaroo or whatever? That's a Perth Royal Mint.
There's the Queen.
The Queen, hello. You give me a cup of tea. Maybe I could put my silver round in your cup of tea and create colloidal silver.
Yeah, a lot of countries.
I need to charge off your ethereal antennas in the castle, and I shall create colloidal silver.
Right.
On to the break. Thank you so much for staying with us for the first hour here. We're going to be right back. I wanted to continue the conversation on, how do you feel that this metals thing is going to move? Because it's going to be the defining moment of our world moving forward. I really believe we're coming into a defining moment on this will separate the planet and the individuals in it. We'll be right back. 'Tis the season for stocking stuffers. The holidays are upon us. The gifts. What are you thinking about giving to others? The gift of stress relief. Rest well, wake clear-headed. Melatonin-free sleep snacks. Master herbalist building and combining CBD, CBDN, functional mushrooms, other sleep-enhancing botanicals with an impeccable balance. One of the greatest natural sleep aids currently available. How about CBD topicals, an effective way of harnessing the power of CBD and CBDA? Full Spectrum has benefits for inflammation and soreness on your skin. Lip balms, body balms, and body creams. What better gift to give relief? Don't forget your pet CBD. Chicken flavor Full Spectrum for dogs and cats. Got to keep those little critters happy. Immune support, no problem, got you covered. Aptogenic mushrooms, herbs, and other soothing ingredients help you feel healthy and vital when you need it most. And for these focus gummies, check out the ingredients: tapioca syrup, beet sugar, real grape puree, none of the chemicals we're used to seeing, pure and natural. Sleep gummies, stress gummies, blueberry lemon flavor, fall asleep faster, stay asleep as long as your alarm setting will allow you, and wake up refreshed, ready to thrive. Blueberry lemon flavor. And if you're not into the gummies, full spectrum soft gel capsules. Tasteless CBN capsules delivering all the efficacy of these plant-based compounds in their most portable form yet. It goes where you go. Not a fan of capsules? Got the ultra pure tinctures for you, delivering a fast, truly impressive range of therapeutic possibilities, from soothing stress to easing aches and pains to help finding deeper sleep. One of the easiest, most convenient ways to access it? Through CBD tinctures. Have it with your coffee in the morning or on the go as you're starting your day. HempLucid.com, bringing you everything you need for a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Everything you've seen here and more is 50% off site-wide on Hemp Lucid's holiday sale. Please support Hemp Lucid, because by supporting Hemp Lucid, you are supporting us at the Civilization Cycle podcast, and you're actually supporting your health and yourself. Remember, that's 50% off site-wide here at Hemp Lucid for their holiday sale. Click on that link in the description box below the video, or tell them that the Civilization Cycle guys sent you by.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
Enzorb, enzyme supplement designed to enhance digestive efficiency and nutrient absorption, acting as a catalyst for metabolism, but also helping you with any type of leaky gut. It helps you absorb your food and bring as much nutrition into your body as you possibly can. Helps energize from the inside, and also Protobite Plus, 100 nutrients, 1 pack. And Protobite Plus, super antioxidant protection, making it ideal for individuals looking to boost their immune health. So many people are trying to do that at the end of the year here. People getting sick, a lot of people feeling off, but at the same time, you're eating incredible amounts of foods that you don't normally eat during the holiday season, and you have digestive issues, or sometimes something just doesn't agree with you, and boom, you'll have some sort of allergy or skin outbreak. These two right here are what you need to get you through the rest of the holidays, because people just buy anything off the store shelves, and if you can't digest it and it's affecting your body and you're having a reaction to it, that means that it's so not natural that you really need something to help you digest that or get it out of your system. And a lot of those micronutrients bind with those types of things and can cleanse them from your body. That's the whole thing. What's happening with our food supply these days, and that is Victory Nutrition International, VNI.life/civilization. Quality products. We bring you quality products every single week. Please support Victory Nutrition International as well. That'll support the Civilization Cycle podcast channel here. We only put on products that we believe in, and I love their products. I have it in the morning, Protobite Plus, get me up. I can wake up with that. If I'm feeling off a little bit with the belly, Enzorb, and also, their hydration during the summertime, and they have a whole range of things. They even have some nootropics that I grind into when I'm working on a long day. Prototype Plus. All those links are in the description box, including many ways to support the podcast here. Things are getting a little stickier, and we have running costs. So thank you for your support, especially coming into the end of the year here. So coming into the second hour, I did want to show you the forecast here for the temperature anomalies. There's some extreme cold coming to the U.S. Lower 48, depends where you sit. And I wanted to run through a couple charts with you just real quick here. We can geek out on some sun and also a little bit of weather forecasting. So where you sit today, that cold is going to start drifting further south here in the next day or so quickly. So as we come through, and these are going to be marching on in 12-hour or 6-hour frames, and you can see the cold starting to come in here. It's literally off the charts, and I did an entire video about how far off the charts it's going to go. And this has moved slightly because, as you see in the southeast U.S., I'm way down here and way at Tennessee at the border down there with Georgia. We're expecting like 10-degree Fahrenheit temperatures over the next few days. Not normal for this time of the year. And it stays around for at least 2 to 3 days. And here's the strange thing. After that, it warms up to the 50s and 60s after this passes over. Look at the heat that's coming. They're talking about 65-degree temperatures at Christmas here after we had something that was 10 degrees Fahrenheit. But the thing is that blistering cold is going to follow after. And it's going to dig much deeper down into the U.S. That entire northern hemisphere here comes the front. And it is going to, once this heat goes out of the way, like I say, right around December, anywhere in the southeast U.S., you're going to think you're in the middle of spring. It's going to be those types of temperatures. Now, the weather front ferocious coming through as it does progress. The European models show it a couple more days out. This really starts to just come like almost straight south toward Texas. So we're going to get into another yet deep freeze. We can come back on that. Don't need to look at it. But what can you say? Get ready, I guess, is the thing. If you know where you're going to be in these extreme cold. Now, luckily, it's not like it was last year where PJM and ERCOT and Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA, they were kind of trying to switch power around so there wouldn't be any blackouts. This doesn't seem all as encompassing, but it just depends on where the breakers might be, because Georgia, about half the way down to Georgia, they're looking at, 15, 16 Fahrenheit all the way to Atlanta. People are going to be drawn on the heat a lot more, but it's not going to go all the way down the coast like it did last year with the massive snowstorms. If you're in an area, please prepare for this. If the power gets cut, like Ransom, what are you thinking here? It's 5 degrees Fahrenheit outside, your power cuts off. How long do you think before your house starts to get cold? Before you really need to start thinking about warming up your room to get through the rest of the night or the day, or start to think that direction, knowing that some of these power outages lasted for 1 to 3 to 7 to 10 days. Like, you just don't know. That's another psychological thing. That's why you need to have radios or something around so you can get some ideas of the emergency systems. Like, when is your power coming? Is it just the one pole down the road, or is it a full grid down where we're going to be down here for a week? 5 degrees Fahrenheit for a full week. What are you doing in your house?
Well, first, I guess I'd, bypass the electricity that makes the gas work and have my central heat up my house. But after that, Gore-Tex. That's what you need. You need a Gore-Tex suit. I've been in extreme temperatures with the Gore-Tex suit, one that was only just waterproof. And with the clothing I had underneath it, I was hot. I was literally hot and had to open it up. And if it gets even colder where it's like causing frostbite with the wind and stuff, you just put on a mask and there you go. I mean, that's the simplest but direct route. But then, you got kids and elderly people, and everybody's not going to have a Gore-Tex suit. So you'll be one of the few people that can possibly aid other people and, just walk around in it, bring them some of those, I forgot what they're called, but the little bars that start right away. There's all kinds of fire starters that you should have. And if worse comes to worse, burn your furniture. You've seen the movies.
You heard about China. Yeah, and everybody out there, there's dry wood inside every log.
Right.
You just have to strip the bark off and get down into that inner dry wood, and you can actually have a fire just shaving that off to at least start it. Because once you get that fire going, it'll dehydrate the other stuff that's trying to burn by itself with the heat, right? You just need to get it going, and you can put wet wood on top of a real hot burning fire, and it'll just and then it's gone, and it'll burn too.
I forgot to
But a lot of people don't even know, like, it can't light the wood. Well, scrape the wet bark off of it. Damn it, man.
let me clarify. When I say Gore-Tex suit, I'm including a pair of thermal and Gore-Tex boots and some good gloves. So, without those parts, the other part doesn't work.
Yeah, it's kind of like a dry suit, right?
Yeah.
It's
Stay
great
dry,
to have a dry
stay
suit on
warm.
diving, but you need the booties and the hood to go with
Yeah,
it.
I myself go out of my way to make sure that I have a good pair of military spec Gore-Tex and thermal insulated boots.
Yeah, these cycles seem to come around. I wanted to show you this site that I found just earlier today as I was moving around through the web. This one is called the Collector, and I didn't really know. And I was chasing down a story about the Romans and what would have caused them to have all their gladiator fights. So why did the Roman gladiators end the games? So I came to this site and I was like, huh, that's a pretty interesting site. They got stuff on cuneiform text. They got things on different fights and different areas around the planet. So when you're diving in here, they do come to talk about deeper thoughts, especially the 9 dark and dangerous goddesses from around the world. Like, I didn't get into this. Well, they got the Enuma Elish as well there. So here are the sinister female goddesses. Like, this is the kind of content they got. And then Mesopotamian gods, we'll dig into that.
That middle one there, I actually have some HD video of that one in the sitter there because I saw it in person in Mexico City there. They had it at the Museum for Anthropology and Natural History or whatever it is for Mexico.
Oh, they did. All right. So check these out. We're going to dive through. This is a cylinder seal, obviously, before. So Tiamat, ancient Mesopotamia. So if any of you know what Tiamat is, it's supposedly Nibiru that crashed into Mars, which might be the representation of that long serpent, was that comet tail coming in that they could see collided with one of their gods, which would have been a planet. So, metaphorically, you're looking back in the past here. So the story does, if you're looking at the creation stories coming out of cuneiform tablets, some of it's Sitchin work as well, translated. Some of them say there was a mistranslation at points on that. But just go with me on this. Tiamat was a planet between Mars and here on Earth. There was another planet in an orbit around it, but Nibiru came in, crashed into Tiamat, which is now our
Earth. It's Earth.
Well, the belt. Well, it's the belt, the comet belt.
No, that's the shattered bracelet.
The shattered, yeah.
Tiamat is Earth before it was Earth. It's the water planet that Nibiru hits and steals all of its moons and leaves behind Kingsu, which is our moon.
Yeah, but what did it do? It also smashed into Mars and caused that electrical scarring at the same time.
Yeah. Well, it's supposedly even Nibiru was responsible for even Neptune bowing and all of that. So you got some strange artifacts out there, like planets with moons going in retrograde to its spin and things like that. Especially with Uranus, Neptune, and Jupiter and Saturn. They have just weird stuff going on. There is indication that some large body moved through our solar system at one time.
Yeah, and then we got A here as well. So you start to look at the representation of like dual, what's it taking on here? But again, gigantic. But think about the myths. Like, how would you describe that? Another magnetic body comes in and actually collides with a planet that has an orbit, and the entire solar system changes. And everybody was looking at the heavens at them. And again, here we go. This Akkadian cylinder symbol. I've seen this one before as well. There's something about this over on the left side that I've seen, this goddess of, I can't even describe it to you. When I see this, I instinctively feel something. Like, if you look at different kind of images and stuff, this one sticks with me for some reason. I just innately connect with it, and I don't know why, but I know that is something powerful. and that is not human. And that's all I know, and that's the feeling I get from it. But you got to think,
Well,
what,
usually,
4,200 years ago?
yeah. Well, a lot of times these female goddesses are represented with bird-like or reptilian feet, and serpents of some kind, especially the Mexico City Virgin. That was a Freudian slip because that specific goddess was around during the Mayan Empire there, and then whenever the Aztecs came, they built another altar on top of it to the same figure. And then when the Roman Catholic Church came, they built an altar to the Virgin Mary, replacing that feminine god thing where they would keep the locals basically coming to the holy spot. They pretty much did that in all of Latin America. And you see that also in the Middle East and the ancient Roman Empire, where the Romans came and built on a Greek thing, and then the Greeks probably built on something older, and then later on you have the mosques and so on being built on there, the Catholic churches and whatnot.
So wait, in a nutshell, you're saying everywhere that you see the Virgin Mary as the center of that worship spot, they were originally worshiping something like this.
Especially in South America and Central America, and yeah,
Okay.
Mesoamerican cultures as well. They had their own female goddess. It was the one on that first slide you see. It's like a snake or reptilian woman with a skirt made out of rattlesnakes. It's very bizarre there. You see that, and it's a double-headed serpent. Which, if you look over at the one you were showing to it from Mesopotamia, you see the double horns of divinity on top of it. Kind of looks like serpents as well.
Yeah, the horn thing as well. It seems to be a purveying theme through all of our history until now, where they try to. And there you
Yeah,
go.
you
You
see
can't
his
tell me
helmet.
that's not DNA on the right, that they're holding a strand of DNA. If you're not smoking enough. If you're not seeing that, that's all
Well,
I'm
it's
saying.
definitely an earlier version of an Ankh, like in
Yeah.
Egypt. And you see that helmet there. So they, with the deities from Sumeria, the more divine they were, the more horns they had on their helmet. So, like in their layer of importance. So, a lot of times, Enki and Enlil and Anu would all be with a bunch of horns, or a bird for some reason.
Oh, gee, where did the bird come from? Do you think? Oh, wait, there's a hawk with the cobra right down there in the vulture.
Right, and then you got that serpents and birds are very important in Egyptian uh, mythos as well.
Yeah, and you always have the storks up in the tops too. So when we're coming down through more of the ancient types of things, like what was their their focus on? And if you look on the left here too, this is a real interesting one. You got the horns coming off, and you got four horns there. I mean, they drew that as something about that was another set of horns coming around. But notice the people that are below it, or Anubis or something at the below. Like this was the size of these beings, literally. When you're talking about Anunnaki gods of something that could be 18 or 20 feet tall, like these giants of old, we're always told, oh, they're 8 foot. They're trying to relate him with Sasquatch, 8, 10 foot tall. Now, apparently, some of the stories, these things are 45 foot tall, 35 feet tall, 25 feet. Like just put that in perspective for a second. When they talk about gods of old and giants of old, they truly meant that. Truly meant that. Incredible giants of massive stature beyond like anything we can comprehend. Like it's just mind blowing that you, as a 6 foot tall human, that's something that could be 5 times taller than you, but also the same anatomy of the human. But imagine the power and the speed of something, 5 times bigger than you.
Right. What's funny is I every time you
Golly.
every time you look at one of the older gods, especially in Aztec and Mayan, which it seems to be that they were totally and utterly mistaken on the age of the Mayan type culture. And the people that they call the Olmecs, it seems, had cities well beyond what they told everybody. So we're talking multi tens of millions of people in a lot of cities, and cities that blanket from the Yucatan all the way to South America. They're lidaring the desert and even the Amazon. They're finding cities there. Down in South America, they're finding older cities there. And what's funny about it is that all of the early ones, they all did megalithic block. And if you can see this one right here, I can't say his name, Blalock or something like that. Anyway, it's the water god of the Aztec. But what's funny is the Aztec didn't make this. They just came upon
Chalk.
this.
Chalk is the water god of the Aztecs.
Right. Well, it's
Chauk. I did a video on that. Blue god.
right. This is him supposedly. This is a giant megalithic piece that they had to use a bunch of equipment to get down to the museum. But it's supposed to be him. The thing is the Aztec didn't build anything like this. This is pre-Aztec. It's pre-Mayan, probably even. The Mayan,
even, but
yeah,
no, not even Olmec, because that facial features would have been different on that.
Well, what's
Very
weird
rounded.
about the Olmec, I actually have a lot of examples of Olmec versus other artifacts, and so a lot of stuff attributed to Olmec are just random civilizations from South America, Central America, and North America that they squeezed into this unknown civilization. But now, like I said, with LiDAR, they're finding all these cities and stuff. But yeah, I just have tons of these, and examples of. I have a video. I could load it. It'll just take forever, but it's just tons of that kind of stuff that came out of there. They had a massive civilization, and it ended, and then recycled and ended again. And they're trying to tell people that it just wasn't that old.
It was old. So let me share this tab instead with you. It is incredibly old. These things that we're told are not old are probably thousands of years older than really given time to. So what I was, staying on the same theme here, how did the ancient Greeks and Romans conduct banking? So what do you see front and center here again? Gold and silver coinage. But to put a point here, you could grab that coin right there and it would be, forget the antique value on it. The silver coin, the silver weight on that would be just as valuable today to buy or purchase something as it was back then. You're just getting the antiquity value on it. Otherwise, the weight in there of, like, let's say, 1/10 of an ounce of silver in there would be equivalent to 1/10 of an ounce of silver today. The purchase price and everything with it would be exactly the same because the metal is exactly the same and it carries that value through history. Although these are more valuable because, they were used in older culture. But in a pinch, silver is silver. And that's the whole thing about it. Saw some old Parthenon pictures from the early 1600s, and it did not look like that. And they were firebombing it, and they had these giant things on what are those catapults that were destroying it. And I got to find that photo. It was in a recent video, but it looked nothing like that. It had just incredible amounts of ornaments across it, and there's a building missing from behind it, completely destroyed. There were two buildings up there.
Right.
Like some of these things, yeah. And you look, old coinage here. So take it over, Ransom. The deer has got you.
Yeah,
again, the horns. What is all about the horns?
It's a sign of divinity, allegedly. What's funny about that is we know at that time and multiple time periods, that's what they were doing, is scouring the earth for resources. And now we're seeing that in a technological sense. And if you've ever watched one of those strip mining operations, or, when they got that giant, amounts to a giant earth saw that has, like 20 buckets on a giant wheel, and it's just stripping along the earth, you see how different what was going on back then compared to now. So we're ready to strip it and move into a technological, advanced, spacefaring civilization. But the problem is they're going to leave the populace dwindling and behind in the dust because they don't want to share their empire.
Yeah, they don't, do they? So what about a forgotten Irish kingdom in a dark age, something like this? They don't want to share the kingdom, and they never will. They never have. This system that we are seeing here has been time immemorial. You got to think about it. There were kings and queens from every single segment of society. If you trace it back even to the Sumerians, there were only a handful of ruler gods that controlled the gold and the silver. Everybody else built cities for them. Everybody else was a slave. It's been like that since the beginning. And there's always been this like little core pocket of those that had continued to carry the money down and the wealth and the laws and the knowledge through the centuries, and what are the same people are in control still. And I just don't understand how their control mechanism continues to stay this steadfast and this strong through the centuries and millennia, even thousands and thousands of years. Still, these same people, they give it all these different labels. Now we call them unelected oligarchs in Europe, but they're still trying to control the top down from humanity. And the mechanism seems to be working better now for control because there's digital dissemination of information at lightning speed. Because before, back in the King's day, the Gutenberg press, when it was first invented, you got to think about, the opposition to it. They're like, terrible, the Gutenberg, you can tell the kings are going to make a raw for the king. But in the back, they're going, hell yeah, we got to go back. We could put out disinformation even back then 10 times faster and get people to start to fight amongst themselves even faster. So you got to start to think about 300 years ago, they were already taking advantage of information through a printing press being pushed out faster. And to a point back to the monks in the 1200s, rewriting every single one of the manuscripts. You'd be like, I was reading some of these accounts that have like 30, 50 monks literally in with those open books, writing one letter at a time. R, everybody, okay, R, and then they agreed, and then they all wrote the one letter, and then they moved on to the next letter. But they translated I shouldn't say translate, but they rewrote entire Bibles one letter at a time in agreement on single letters before they'd even stroke the letter. So there would be zero mistakes. At that level of 30 to 50 people in a room listening to an orator like beating a drum on a canoe captain or something, R, L, and everybody would have to yell back L, and then they would write the letter.
Right.
That's crazy. And then you got Gutenberg press, so it could only move at a certain speed. Gossip only moved so fast as the horse. Gossip only moved as fast as the newspapers in the trains. Now and it could only move so fast with 3, 5, and 8 channels, in the 1960s. People still needed to talk and then, share it. But now it's like individual for you, AI created content to bend your mind in real time, that things can be shared really thousands of times faster than even in the 1990s. So think about that. Whatever their control mechanisms were that kept them in power through the last thousands of years, through dark ages and rises and falls of full-on civilizations and rebirths of Europe of continent size, they're still here. And it's weird how they continue to stay in power and have so much control with wealth over this planet.
Well, think about this. You put this map up here, and right around this area and to the south of it, including over in Ireland, massive amounts of tin was being shipped out in the ancient world to the Roman Empire and pre-Roman times. And they had these really fancy, all the way up into Scotland, these fancy stone-made houses that they lived. And they lived in relative wealth, like the pottery and other things found in those little stone homes was that of rich people of the time. And all they did is sit there and then go meet people on the coast that came in boats to get their tin and would trade them all these goods from all around the world. And that's why they would get things from citrus and grapes and, all kinds of different potteries from the Middle East, including gold and silver items. That was going on pre-Roman and then all through the Roman age. And then later you see the seats of power come out of their free Scottish free rights and the British Empire and all of that stuff all come out of the same area later. But to your other point about the individual stuff here, let me
talk. Here's what the gold of the Celts were wearing. So if I might share this screen with you here. So what Ransom's coming on this is the wealth that was traded in that area for tin. So you got to think about the tradability of metals. Now, currently, if you had a job, wink, wink, the new big thing is collecting all of the pennies that are solid copper, because those are going to be worth more and more and more. And also the nickels that are solid nickel, not the alloys. So The money is being harvested through our country here to bring back base metals out of our monetary system, which is another way to destroy wealth. So we're even getting milked at the penny and the nickel level. Really, the copper, we're being given junk when that copper is actually was disseminated at a certain price. It's being pulled back in and stolen from the populace. Now, those who are in the know really start to collect all of these very solid copper pennies before 1983, and then the nickels as well, because they're actually the weight of a pound of that is far more than the value of the face on the metals. And there's so many people that'll melt that down in a second. They'll actually give you the price on that.
Yeah, it's because
Some of the pennies are selling for up to $5 a pound now, $4 a pound on the pennies, solid copper pennies. But the reason I say that, tin has its own price. But if you have a tin mine, you could also trade jewelry made of gold for a certain amount of tin. And this is the gold. Now get this in. They weren't trading bullion. This is the stuff they were trading for here. So I hope you can see the screen. And I know you're a fan of gold as much as me. But you know, this is the wealth you're talking about here that was coming into the place, that was found in people's homes. This kind of gold. Look at the fine workmanship on that.
Right.
This, we put everybody as barbarian. They got a chisel and a shovel and they couldn't do anything. But look at the workmanship on this gold. This is what they were finding in those same Celtic areas. Like, the gold that was being traded. That's a very, very nice piece right here. Like, look at this. I'll zoom it in for you. Like, you're talking a master goldsmith, 35, 40 years of the craft to be able to make something like that. And you look at it, and we can barely make anything like that today. But going back, that's 250 BC. Look at and it came from Spain, and it arrived over in Celt land somewhere, Ireland, tin mines, Scotland, this area it popped up in. But look at I'm just so shocked at these types of, relics. It's 2,200 years old. And the workmanship on this is, look at the spiraling metal there too, the way the DNA strands are twisting.
Right.
Like, we need machine work to do that now to get that tight. It's just mind-boggling how good they were at these types of arts and crafts with metallurgy back then, when we were told they were barbarians through the linear history that we know. It's just absolutely insane that this workmanship level was 2,200 years ago, and somehow that whole line of engineering and mathematics and metallurgy disappeared for 2,000 years. Then we just popped up making, compressed air energy technology in the 1700s. Like, what? Where did that 2,000, or I'll be generous and say 1,500 years of time go to?
Well, they were pretty handy with the metals, at least back 5,000 years in Eurasia, moving.
Metals is technology, man. Metals is technology.
And this is the other thing. It goes back to what we were saying earlier, and that, they're kind of changing the world here in this way. This is the and you brought this up a minute ago. It's the tailored to each person. But when you're looking at these articles and you're being tailored to, you have to realize, if you're not paying attention, you might not realize, but you would have to realize that there's a lot of errors, fictional quotes. And they're talking about, this is the Washington Post's AI generated podcast. And I remember only a few years ago when I brought up the article that was talking about the first AI newspaper that had came out. And then, it spread to the other websites. And here is probably the only thing that I've seen on the internet that you could consider good news in a while. Home price is going down. But when you look, it's not really going down much, only 1.4%. So, to somebody that's trying to come up and buy a house, that doesn't help them, but it does for people that are right around the market value. But most of these things you don't even see going in the positive. And I actually meant to bring this up last week, but forgot.
Wait, what was that quarantine in North Carolina? Can you go back to that one? And that's a really important one.
Okay, well, that's
South Carolina. I have a scary, Ransom, because I'm one state over from that, and I didn't hear about that.
Right. Well, I was about to go there. I will. I was going to go there, like, in an order of these ideas here.
Yeah,
so
please. That's ridiculous.
They're setting us up for a 2020 thing, and this is something I meant to bring up last week. So we're looking at job losses, manufacturing down 9 months in a row. We got layoffs, right? We got the Fed chair, Jerome, whatever, saying that job numbers are being overstated. But then when you go back here, you see that the EU and everybody's ready to go back to pandemic era mask mandates and viruses surging of different kinds. And then you move over into the US and they're already, setting us up for this type of thing here. South Carolina measles outbreak is accelerating during hundreds into quarantine. And you got hundreds quarantine in South Carolina, measles outbreak. But this is measles, and supposedly, most people are protected against that and aren't, they shouldn't worry about getting that supposedly. But the point is that they're trying to go back to a previous era of recent times and bringing back mandates. And you kind of see, governments admitting to certain things. We won't get into that because you know how YouTube is. But they're setting up the whole thing for a manipulated everything. So from your emotional response to the news you think you're getting that's full of errors and theories and half truths and everything, to the point where people are going to be, through technology, forced to think in a certain direction, almost like over here where the Taliban forced, they say they forced them. I don't know. Supposedly the victim of the execution had killed this kid's family or something like that. But 80,000 people went to a stadium to watch it. And, that's how they change the public's attitude, kind of if they're not going in the right direction. And that just ties back into the technological, side of things there, where they're going to be controlling what children think, dumbing them down at the same time, rewiring their brain, using this technology. And it's so easy to slip into the home, so to speak, because it's, basically passive entertainment is how they're doing it. So they're going to skip over. And then you have this is also passive emotions right here, because you're forced to see some kind of event. And it's not unlike what they're doing over there, like what the Taliban's doing, where you can force 80,000 people. But think about the whole network that they're talking about. We're talking billions of people can be forced into watching or participating a certain thing and having an opinion on it all of a sudden. And then more industry being shut down over here. Even if you're not a smoker or a fan of it in that way, just for the biodiversity. And then, we were talking about the cannabis ban that's they're trying to do, and all of these people that invested billions into these different industries now going to get robbed. And it's also going to drive the genetics underground to black market growers. And then, they are prepared to let us know that we are entering the phase that they're just going to start calling World War III at one point. As you can see us seizing these, tankers full of oil and talking about hitting.
I'm going to have to go out on a limb and just say I definitely don't agree with that at all.
Well, this is just for your visual, so you see that something's happening.
Well, I saw that it happened, but you got to look at it. This is considered piracy in most eras and areas through history. If you really want to rewind the clock, like in the 1700s when the Spanish were, or depends if it's Dutch or the Spanish or the English or the Portuguese or whatever, during those times, let's say back in the 1400s, what they did right then was considered piracy almost through the last 500 to 600 years of, maritime transport. That who's arbitrarily making the rules? Like that's a sanctioned tanker. Well, who says it's in international waters? Come on.
Well,
it's even closer off. You can't tell me that that's legal to do that.
It goes right into the golden rule there. It's who has, the gold makes the rules there. So if you're the empire in the area, and people are basically thinking that Maduro's already in hiding. So they're already expecting from their end an Iraq style, shock and awe to certain sites in the area. And
oh, wait a second. I got to add to the story then, because that girl this morning, like in a 007 move, going through 10 checkpoints to get to a little boat. And then they told the U.S. Air Force, don't shoot on the boat because they're going to get her over to Curacao. And then the opposition leader got flown from Curacao over to like Norway to accept the Nobel Peace Prize like a few days late. Right as you just said that, at the same time Maduro's leaving, the opposition leader had to sneak out through 10 checkpoints. And an
Right.
extraction expert had gotten her out of Curacao. And then
Well,
it was
that
whole, oh, and then she rocks up at the ceremony like a few days later, like, oh, I got out. Thank you, everybody, for getting me out. But then the whole thing, like, again, that's a mixed message.
right.
What is it? Is he collapsing? Is he going away? This girl's got to flee, and are you getting too sad? It's so
Well,
ridiculous.
it's
Ridiculous.
funny that she bounced out right after Trump on live TV said that she's not, safe from actions either, like Maduro.
Yep.
And then you got right here. It's like I'm telling you, it's like the Iraq story, but it's
Exactly.
going to play
Weapons of
out
mass
over here.
destruction.
Yes,
You
and
don't remember weapons of mass destruction everywhere, every turnover of rock.
well, we're going to have to look
And
for
there's a
nukes.
weapon of destruction, masses of them
And
everywhere.
that whole thing used to irritate me so bad when they would get on TV and debate whether or not Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. And they
Oh,
would
God.
always use the example of the yellow cake uranium that never existed, but they failed to mention like the sarin gas and the mustard gas and the other stuff that the United States sold directly to Saddam Hussein. So yes, he had weapons of mass destruction. We sold them to him. He used them on the Kurds. When we tried to sell it to the Kurds first, and then they backstabbed us by trying to sell it to Saddam, and then he used it on them. So it's a whole funny thing that we never
And it
brought up
didn't even
any.
work, really. That's the whole thing is, see, that was,
Right.
I don't know whether, I hate to cut you off, man, but it didn't work as planned. Like, right, these chemical weapons in your mind, they just absolutely decimate everything. There's not a living thing around. It's the most dangerous thing on the planet. But in real life, using them on the battlefield, dude, they were inoperable. They work to an extent, but not even remotely close to your mind the way it has perceived through your programming of how a chemical weapon can be that deadly. It just didn't. It was not. It was such a farce to look at that and then go, "That's all they had." Like what?
Yeah, and then we kind of
Well,
ignored
shrapnel
it.
does as much. Like
We
what?
kind of You remember we kind of ignored it again when we accidentally dropped ISIS missiles and stuff that they could put gas on, and then you had the whole Assad thing with the poison gas and all that. And nobody asked, where did all that stuff come from? There was weapons of mass destruction. We sold it to several parties in the Middle East for destabilization, and then claimed that a fictional one was the excuse to go in. So it's funny, but they are going down this Iraq path right here. Like it says, here's the Baghdad Bob moment right here. Raging Maduro vows to
The
break America's
incubators, they're
teeth.
pulling the babies out of the incubators, Ransom. They're pulling the babies out of the incubators. Should I cry like I think it was the ambassador's daughter did on TV to say they're pulling the baby.
Yeah,
The
which
whole,
turned out to be
farcical thing too. That was the
total
ambassador's
BS.
daughter that was making those statements. It was all just a show,
Right.
man.
And
It's all
that was
fake.
total BS. And here
Total
we go
BS.
right
No, with
right down
the cherry on top of the yellow cake.
right. And here we go down the same road again. Nukes in Venezuela. Did Russia give Venezuela nukes?
In Venezuela.
Yeah. Putin holds call with Maduro, backs Venezuela after U.S. seizes the oil tankers. See, here's the warning to Colombia while she's over there getting
Now it's
the
Colombia.
medals.
Yeah, okay. We've been in
And then-
Colombia's ass since like Bush, right?
Right. And then Exxon's saying, you know what? Good for us. We're gonna billions earning growth. That sounds all good because you remember Chavez burned Exxon and all of those guys. And now we're doing it back and we're gonna take over that spot. But recently
For
they've
free.
admitted
For free. We got a discount. We got the 5-finger discount.
right. And then you got Denmark cutting funding to Ukraine, which you're going to see several other countries follow this route, including the U.S., because we're going to go ahead and turn Ukraine into East and West Germany. We're gonna deal with it half down the middle. Zelensky, he played himself out of a hand to stay in there, so they're just going to cut it up without him. Europe saying that we're an enemy because we don't want to go into World War III with Russia, but they are determined to continue to do it. Right here, Russia
So crazy
rapidly
too,
gaining territory in Ukraine.
One of those
Here's
articles
this one.
coming out today. No, go ahead.
No, here's another
Yeah,
one
that's
that's
exactly
talking
what I
about.
want to reference here. Yeah, they're going to prepare for a war that for me, my grandparents.
Yep, it's WW2 again. We just
They
moved
endured a
the
lot, man,
names.
coming back from that war. Fuck.
Yeah, they want to do it again. But it goes along with the Agenda 30 plan to reduce population worldwide by 80%. 80% is a big number. Even the Georgia Guidestones said basically 90%. So that figure between 80 and 90 is the number that they want to go with. And you can go to different TED Talks and listen to these different technocrats talk about how they agree with that, including, remember Bill Gates, where he gave the whole formula. If we just, give enough people medicines, then that'll control the population. Europe to prepare for war-sized conflict with Russia. So, like, I got all the different flavors of it here. You're left, you right, you're the conspiracy theorist. Guess what? All of them are saying we are going to world war. And leak files show that U.S. wants to persuade 4 nations to leave the EU. We had a leaked document the other day that talked about how
which
if we had,
nations, though? Ransom,
let's
which
see,
nations are they asking to leave? Does it say?
it sounds
Poland.
like
Okay, Hungary. Well, Hungary wanted to get out anyway. Italy wants to be out. Poland. These are all nations that were already like, hell, help us to get out of here already. But
well, you
Austria.
remember
Well, I
you
went to
remember we
Austria down. That's like the center. There, like if there's a second center of the EU, it's in Austria.
I tell you, I came in the 1990s, the late 1990s. I came back to New Mexico after leaving as a young person and coming back. And when I got here, the Air Force Base had Italian, German, Japanese, and Korean pilots learning how to fly. Right. So when you drove into the base, you saw all the flags of the axis of evil. Right. So I don't know why they're playing games with the order of nations that team up with each other. But today you can see that, I don't know, Austria,
They need to
Hungary,
keep you
Italy,
distracted.
Poland. These are all the World War II countries, right? And then we have the factions, but they're changing. You have Turkey talking about they want to go ahead and help build an Islamic State, which is basically a repeat of the Ottoman Empire. They're lining everything up to be a copy where they're just switching it around. And another document that leaked the other day was supposedly our think tank's version on what would happen if we tried to defend Taiwan, in which it said we would lose to China. And then, we talked about that last week also.
Yeah, but hold on, Ransom. Hold on. I'll say the same thing again for anybody out there that's scared of that. If the chip manufacturing is hindered with or destroyed or damaged or that supply chain is cut off, all of this global agenda that we're hearing about stops and it rolls back 5 years or even more because they just won't have the chips to do that. So, you're looking at one thing what they're saying out of the side of their mouth, but then on the other side of the mouth of the 2030 goals are non-accomplishable. This is really not even remotely accomplishable without all the continuous chip production. Never ending, ceasing mountains of this stuff rolling off the island to be able to fly out everywhere else to get these devices produced.
That's
To
why
put
they're
them in
informing
place
us.
for this control net. And without them, you cannot complete the 2030 agenda. So don't believe the hype is what I'm saying.
Well, it seems like somebody's trying to throw a wrench in it as far as who gets to control the outcome of the Agenda 30. And there's several players in it there, but this is the U.S.'s answer. We're just going to start we're going to start it up here. We're going to start ripping the materials out of our allies' countries and our own. And like this one, that's why I pointed this out. U.S. military developing small refineries for critical materials so that they could, what does it say down here? Compete with China right here. Compete with China because we're going to go to war with China. And I went just this last point. Last week we were talking about Operation Fast and Furious and how did the CJNL or whatever the initials are for the big new cartel with all the Kevlar helmets and the body armor and the new M4 platform with 203 grenade launchers and armored vehicles and the whole plethora of 223 556. They got it. And then here just the other day, Obama's DEA chief financial director arrested and charged with laundering $12 million for the Mexican drug cartel, which is exactly the one that we were speaking of. And right here, 25-year DEA veteran also schemed to provide high-grade military equipment to dangerous cartels, according to DOJ documents. And if you remember, we had the whole Eric Holder and Obama thing, the Fast and the Furious with leaked emails, basically saying that they were arming not only gangs in U.S. cities, but gangs in other countries. Now, why would they do that? Well, they told us why, right in the emails, to attacked the Second Amendment and the ability of the American to own and possess its own protection device systems. It was there to cause chaos, mass shootings and attacks. But really, that wasn't it. Really, it was just to fund and destabilize south of the border here so that we can accomplish a third world war, but in the Western Hemisphere.
Provided things stay stable enough, and that's where the rubber meets the road. When you look at the amount of earth changes currently happening, I mean, the stability of, and this is what the connection I think is for the best term. Let me share the screen with you. The more the earth changes ramp up into once in a 1,000-year event, once in a 500-year event, every event, at that point, the game is kind of over for keeping this under the rug. And the whole reason for all of what you're seeing right now is it's a distraction because, Ransom had mentioned many a time through the show here that, the news is diametrically opposite on purpose in every single way. And they get you on these goldfish stories. There's a purpose for that, to keep you distracted completely. Now, why would they want you distracted? Well, the earth changes and our civilization are non-salvageable. They don't go together. It's an oil and water event happening now. The South Atlantic anomaly has almost doubled in size in under 10 years. So they're looking out, going into the forecast. All right, this is starting to be an exponential runaway. Before it was sort of a linear, but now it's becoming exponential. Increase in the size of no magnetic field on the south side of our planet. If this were to double again, it would go all the way over to South Africa and beyond. And it would be more than a quarter, but less than a half of the entire southern part of our world with zero magnetic field. To the point where even a breath from the sun, the lowest possible CME would send auroras and electrical connections through the Earth's magnetic field down there. So if you get something larger like an X5, for example, that is going to flow in down there first, charge the crust, and run from there up. These earth changes are a direct relation to how fast the governments are going to need to move on their plans. There's a correlation here. The more the earth changes ramp up into the once in like an X for a variable, the governments need to respond with X as a variable with that to distract the populace from all of this happening, because the food prices are going to continue to keep rising because of this. There's so many gargantuan things happening. I'm looking around going, the food's going to get a little more expensive because everywhere they grow food is just having ridiculous amounts of, unthinkable weather events on these areas. South Brazil, that's where they right now are planting. They're in the planting season down in Southern Hemisphere there. They're going into their spring as we're heading into our winter. So when you're getting 4 inches of rain over a predominant amount of the southern corn belt in both Argentina and Brazil, that's not good for crops. Not good. Just saying. Forget the 3.8 inches. That is that much on top of just scraped farm fields that they just planted seed into. You're getting that much water. It's going to rot the seed. They need to replant. And it just continues. And then Cyprus, again, if you're looking at different types of oils coming out of there, Pacific Northwest, you're looking at the fruit. Saudi Arabia, now get this, Saudi Arabia, 7 inches of rain in 6 hours. They don't get that much in an entire year. So put this in perspective. They got more than a year's worth of rain in 6 hours. But if you cruise over the Red Sea, then that's where the new Renaissance Dam is, and they built that not knowing how it was going to fill. Now, some of these areas here, it's also validating that a multi-thousand-year cycle is returning to re-wet these areas here that are dried out. Like the African megalakes, have been doing a couple stories on it. They keep filling up and keep displacing cities and towns and villages. So heavy rains in Gaza. So this is the whole thing around Lebanon, all the way through Israel, Gaza, that whole area down to Egypt. That whole mountain range area there is just getting soaked to the bone. And, I would be terrified to be in Petra and some of these wadis down there, these really tight openings, because they're flash flooding like crazy right now. If you're down in these desert areas, be careful of the flash floods. No kidding.
Right.
But we're starting to see some of these same things, going back into the past on a few of the gold and different things. 6,000 years ago, this place had constant, continuous rainfall enough to have forests on it. That has diminished into deserts and is very brittle to soils, and there's the catchment of water, like we have forests that would stop all these massive runoff floods. It's not there, but it will be. If it continues to rain like this, eventually deposits will come and then seeds will go and it'll become a stable base and everything will move from that. Come back over thousands of years. The flipping of that cycle from complete dry, it's as dry as it's ever been probably 20 years ago. It's never going that dry again in 6,000 years from this point forward. That was the driest it will ever be on our current planet's climate cycle, that it could possibly be that dry. That's the driest it ever was, ever. So if you were to look back, 6,000 years from now, they'll go, oh, the complete low where there was almost no moisture in Africa was 6,000 years ago. It's the lowest it's ever been in the last, 36,000 year was, this time right now, it's about the driest it's been. Even during the ice age, the flows there produced much more rainfall, the way it hit mountains and dropped off. So the flows actually, that's why it was forest there. That's why the mega lakes were there, because the flows were completely different with the jet streams. It's coming back. That's the whole thing. And governments know this. Animals are behaving strangely, more violently within a lower magnetic field. They're like dragging through the articles here. But think about being a correlation. The more incredible and intense weather becomes, the more governments are going to start strong arming everybody and controlling the resources that will be lost to nature. They're going to harvest them before they are lost. You are the harvest. We are coming into the winter. And every farmer pulls all of their goods back in and before they lost into the soils again. This is what's happening on our planet. That is not news you're looking at with a distraction. That is a way for the elite to come in and take everything that would be lost. And I keep trying to re-explain this in words, and eventually one day I'm going to wordsmith it out correctly. But thanks for staying with us tonight. Civilizationcycle.com. Drop in for the show notes. 10 different points that we talked about here. And also, please support our sponsors that you've seen tonight: VNI.Life, Victory Nutrition International, Hemp Lucid, and also Alpha Vedic, the dental solutions. I really like that scrub on the tooth, because I'm telling you, my teeth get so squeaky clean when I use that one. Like the natural toothpaste with the rock salt in it, and it's just like squeaky. You could feel squeaky clean, literally squeaky clean. So I really love the products that we're talking about here. And we appreciate you coming to spend your valuable time every single week. And thank you for everybody new that's listening right here. Civilizationcycle.com. We will send you the show notes out. 10 bullet points of what we talked about. Ransom, send us out anything else to speak about this evening. Sign us off, man. We got 1 minute.
I was just thinking, that one topic we didn't show here was the fears of the mega quake that Japan's been talking about, because they've had a 7.5 and then a 6.7 a little while ago. But they're fearing this mega quake. And I was watching this broadcaster over there talking about that. They think that that's what the Chinese are waiting for with Taiwan. They want Japan in disarray, and then they'll just do it. And they think that they'll just accomplish it and we'll back off. And we might, considering we moved the fleet a long time ago from there. So yeah, who knows what the Christmas will bring us.
Good tidings and Spanish doubloons in everybody's stockings. Gold doubloons coming your way. Wish you the best. Manifest. Kilograms of gold coming into our stockings. That's the way we need to think. Forget this silliness that they're trying to get you into a scarcity mindset. This is going to be an abundant period for those people ready. So do appreciate you listening to us. Smash that like and subscribe button. Share with your friends and family. Share the videos out. Tell other new people to come on and